Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, I'm joined by Chips Enuff, and we'll talk all about the new Enuff's Enough album, Hardrock Nite. It's a collection of Beatles covers, as well as some songs from John Lennon and Paul McCartney's solo catalog. It's a great conversation, all things Beatles, that I think you guys are going to really love. So let's jump in and let's get started. So, Chip, first, I want to just say congratulations on the forthcoming album next week, Hardrock Nite, coming out November 12th. Congratulations on that. Why now? Why all of a sudden, after all these years of Enuff's Enough being compared to the Beatles, why is now the right time to do a Beatles cover album?
Why not now? It's the time.
That's great.
Let's pay respect to our forebears. If it wasn't for the Beatles, half the bands that we know about right now wouldn't even be out there. It just so happens that because of all the shutdowns and all the mandates and restrictions that we had to deal with in the last year and a half, it gave all the bands plenty of time to come up with ideas on what they needed to do to navigate these waters. And we just said, we're going to start recording. We have a wonderful relationship with our record companies. On this one, it's Frontiers. Yep. They've been very good to us. They said, we wanted a bunch of records from Enough Stuff. What can you give us? And the first one we came up with was the Beetle Record, because no rock band has ever went in the studio and recorded a whole Beatle album in its entirety. I know there's a couple bands that recorded songs. I know that even Cheap Trick did a live record of Beatles stuff, but no one's ever went in the studio and recorded songs from 1967 through on these iconic smash magical songs that the Beatles have come up with. That here we are 60 years later, and we're still talking about them and playing those guys and celebrating their life. It's incredible. It only made sense. I wish we would have done it earlier, but you know what? That's happenstance. The fact of the matter is, we got the record now. It's coming out. The fans get a chance to celebrate Beatles songs done through my rose-colored glasses.
There you go. So, you just said it perfectly. No other hard rock band has done a full Beatles album. Do you feel any pressure having these versions compared to those classic Beatles versions that everybody knows and loves?
No, it's a reinterpretation of Beatles songs. We're not trying to match the same timbre as John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Those guys are second to none. Paul McCartney invented my job, as far as I'm concerned.
True.
No, I wanted to go out there and play these songs, and if anything, it's going to be good for everybody because, well, obviously, being the same breath and under the same umbrella as the Beatles is a great thing, but we're going to turn on our fans on to Beatles songs. A lot of people don't know who the Beatles are still. As many people out there that know about the Beatles, there's just as many in the new generation that aren't even sure about it. I remember when McCartney was right with Kanye West, and everybody goes, "Oh, yeah, this is gonna blow up for McCartney." I mean, let's face it. The new generation, it's about telephones and social media. They're not really paying attention to the old days, like when you and I went out and we would get records and we'd buy the album. We'd sit out around the house and everybody would congregate with a glass of wine or smoke a joint, and we'd listen to the whole record in entirety and look at all our liner notes and all the foliage that was involved in making records. It was a special time back then. Record stores embraced it beyond belief. Radio was unbelievable when it came to new albums to let the masses know about them. And now here we are nowadays where we're at a time where there's almost too much product and not enough demand. You can make a record in your bedroom nowadays.
So true. So
I think we did something that's quite unique here, bringing it back to the old days. Nice analog hard rock record, picked some great Beatles songs, not from just one record, but going through the whole discography of their stuff and just finely tuning the ones that really tripped our trigger. You know, whether it's John Lennon or McCartney solo or Beatles stuff. To me, it's all the same.
Right. And that's one of the things I love about the album is that it is Beatles stuff, but it's also, like you just said, some McCartney stuff, some Lennon stuff. I happen to think the version you guys do of Jet on this album is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I loved it. So I love that you're covering all those different eras of John and Paul.
Thanks. That's the first one, the first single that Frontiers is putting out. I remember reading a story about McCartney driving somewhere in North America and a big bag of pot, and they opened up the hatch in the bus and threw it out there while they're writing that song. I thought that was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. No different than the old days of Enuff Snuff when we were on tour with, Def Leppard or Cheap Trick or Poison or one of the bands out there. I think this sets us apart now. For the naysayers out there that said, well, Enuff Snuff is just like a hair metal band or a hard rock band, which is, as far as I'm concerned, call us what you want, just as long as you call us. But I think this we're in refined air right now, because really, at the end of the day, from the very beginning, we've been a pop band, but an aggressive pop band where we play, the guitars are turned up and it's a little bit heavy. And this record right here, boy, you talk about, imagine the Beatles making a record nowadays with Marshall amps and Mesa Boogie amplifiers and big drums and, the technology that we have today. It'd be incredible. Okay.
It would be.
So to take those songs they wrote 60 years ago, redo them and play them with the same capacity and the same afflictions that the Beatles carried in those old days, which, by the way, I know how to record those records, a lot of them, because I hung out with Mick Jones from Foreigner, who spent 6 months in the studio with the Beatles. And it was the guys walk in the studio, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they start playing. Right. And that's the approach that we took on the record. Not a lot of overdubs. We don't have George Martin around, God rest his soul.
Right.
A fabulous producer. But we learned a lot from those old days. I know my guitar player, Tony Fennell, did some work with George Martin when he used to sing with Ultravox. So he told me a few stories and we stole a few little tricks. We nicked a few ideas. But for the most part, it's 4 musicians, Tori Stoffregan, Tony Fennell, Daniel Benjamin Hill, and myself going in the studio and bashing out 17 Beatles songs, and then we pick the best 10, and you're going to get them next week.
So that's interesting, because that's one of the things I was going to ask you. You put 10 on the album, you recorded 17. What's the plans then with the other 7 that you've recorded?
It's too early to tell, because as soon as we finished that record, I went in the studio and started recording a solo record, which is going to be through Frontiers. It comes out in March of next year, and it's called Perfectly Imperfect. And that's got Joel Holstra from Whitesnake, Cher playing guitar. Yep. Dax Nielsen from Cheap Tricks playing drums on the record. And I have, believe it or not, Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses on one song. I did a cover of Honolulu Boogie off from Ian Hunter's record, Mata Hoople. So I had to finish that record too. And then now we're in the midst of finishing up the new Enuff Snuff album. So a lot of work, bro. Listen, you can't call us lazy at the end of the day.
That's for sure.
I don't want to say we're profound and prolific, but hey, we're putting a lot of records and the reviews are great. On this Beetle record, it's already sold out. It hasn't even come out yet. All the pre-orders are sold out with Frontiers. That says a lot right there. Not only about Enuff Snuff, but how profound and prolific the Beatles were themselves, and how much of a history these guys have. And the fan base is massive beyond belief. It's going to help Enuff Snuff, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, and one of the things I heard the album, one of the things that I love about it is I'll say it keeps true to the original arrangements. Right? You certainly, veer and make all of a sudden they're not thrash metal songs or something like that. Yet they sound like Enuff Snuff also. They sound current, they sound modern, yet they still sound like the Beatles. It's like that perfect mix I felt of old and new. Was that something you were trying to go after for this album?
Well, we're not a tribute band. It's a reinterpretation through our eyes on what the Beatles are about. If we were in the Beatles and these were our songs, that's how we would record them. And we just didn't want to step over the foul line and try to do something that was a little considered disrespectful to the legacy of what the Beatles have done. So yeah, we kept that in mind. But for the most part, we just want to make a hard rock record of Beatles songs. That's simple.
Right.
Just picture Stone Temple Pilots and Cheap Trick. Throw them in an alley. I come in at 3 o'clock in the morning and break up that fight. That's the new Hard Rock Night Enuff Snuff album. Okay, it really is. We didn't overthink it at all, except we underthought it. Okay, less is more. Let's just get good performances in the studio. You know, back in the old days, bro, I'd be recording with my band. There'd be a Brinks truck full of blow, tons of alcohol, tons of trim in the studio. And we are, even though the common denominator was getting great songs and recording wonderful stuff, we weren't even thinking about anything but the big party, to be honest with you. And nowadays, we've calmed down. We're not out on tour with Cheap Trick and Def Leppard and all those big bands anymore. Now we're out with bands like Ace Frehley and Great White and Faster Pussycat. And so it hasn't changed very much, except maybe smaller rooms. On this record, I think we can really open it up to interpretation. We can take this show on the road. We can call it the Beatles Rock Show, or we can call it Enough's Enough and go play these songs. And I don't think anybody will be bored. You won't see anybody going to the bathroom. There won't be huge lines because everybody's going to be watching the show, because every one of these songs, they stand the test of time.
Without a doubt. Now, to that point, the catalog for the Beatles, I'm going to say second to none, right? How do you narrow it down to even 17 songs that you recorded? How do you narrow that down, especially when you're bringing in the solo stuff that Paul and John did?
I just listen to all the stuff that they've recorded. I mean, the Beatles have recorded, 300 songs they've released in a short amount of time. I was talking about profound.
Incredible.
Guys. Yeah, it's what they put together. They would make 2 records in a year, and bands don't do that anymore. Now bands make a record and they don't make another one for 3, 4, or 5 years.
Yep.
So I listened to the songs. I picked a lot of my favorite ones out, and so the guys in the band as well. We're all Beatle fans. Tori Stoffregan loves George Harrison beyond belief. Listen to his slide guitar playing. It's incendiary. Tony, getting a chance to. He's from England. He's from Birmingham, England. He's hung out with those cats. He's been around all that stuff that was going on back in those old days over in England. So it's in his blood beyond belief. And me and Dan Benjamin Hill, we love that rhythm section. We think that McCartney and Ringo were the quintessential rhythm section. We pillage as much as we can from those guys. We're always nicking stuff from them because it's timeless and it's about great performances at the end of the day. And the songs that I picked on this record were favorites that I loved. In the old days, we used to throw Cold Turkey in a set, and we did Revolution when we played concerts. But most of the time back in the early days, we had hits on MTV, and the fans wanted to hear the Enough's Enough songs. They didn't even know who the Beatles were, a lot of our fans. And the ones that did hear those songs, they thought they were Enough's Enough songs. Here we are now. We finally get a chance to pay homage to our forebears. We'll go out there. We play these songs that I handpicked with my band. 10 great, solid songs. And, there's other stuff in the kitty. Maybe there'll be a follow-up one day. No one knows. It's one thing at a time. I don't want to confuse motion with progress.
Sure. That makes sense. Now, you mentioned before, and I've noticed when looking at the track list, and a lot of the Beatles songs are from like that 67, 68 era. And the stuff really ranges from 67 to like the early 70s. Is that really your favorite period of the Beatles and John and Paul as solo artists?
For me, it is. But I will tell you, I like to indulge myself in the earlier catalog as well. Some of those pop songs reinterpreted and played with big guitars and electric, I think would be absolutely fantastic. I know my management companies brought that up to me. Said, "Man, let's go. If we do a follow up to this, let's grab some of those real pop stuff in the early days and then work it up. Same arrangements. Don't touch the lyrics or melody lines, but just played a little heavier, a little more aggressively. I think we might come up with something nice there."
Agreed. No, I think that would be very exciting to hear. Now, for you as a singer, are there any of these songs more challenging than others to sing?
They all are, every single one of them. Yeah, it's just not an easy gig whatsoever. But that's the fun of it, to go out there and play these songs and try to sing them as well as I can. There's no one going to match McCartney and Lennon. Those two guys are incredible. Hey, George Harrison, even Ringo, they had their own timbre as well. But most of these songs are Lennon McCartney songs, and it's really hard to even come close to trying to say that you're in the same ballpark as those guys. I did the best I could on them. I sang them live in the studio here in Blue Island, Illinois, at my recording studio. And my approach when we started doing the record, Tony mentioned it to me too. Tony Fennell, he says, "Just sing them like you sing them, mate." and just leave it alone. Don't worry about it. So I wasn't punching in words. I wasn't, hey, let's redo the chorus again. These are 1 or 2 takes, folks, because I want to reproduce these songs live, and I don't want to be worrying about all that rigmarole that happens at live concerts with technology and having guys underneath the stage and sequencers and stuff. Just want to go out there and play the songs and do the best I can. And if it trips your trigger and you like it and it gets close to the original, I've served its purpose.
There you go. Now, I know you mentioned before the song Cold Turkey, right? So I've read in the past where Alice Cooper has said he thought that that song was the perfect representation of John Lennon. What are your thoughts on that?
I have to agree with Alice Cooper. I've always admired his strut. That early Beatles stuff, especially that was from the Shaved Fish record with him and Yoko, and I think they produced most of that album. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of great songs on there that I let slip through the cracks. I thought would have been absolutely fantastic. Mind Games, I'd love to redo that one. Fantastic track. The Beatles really were huge blues fans. A lot of people don't talk about that.
Right.
Paul does. He mentions it a lot, and so does John when he was around. He used to mention it as well because they love Chuck Berry and that they also love Muddy Waters and B.B. King and Albert King and Buddy Guy. They were huge blues fans. So you listen to a lot of the stuff of the Beatles and you'll hear blues influence stuff in there. And being from Chicago, same thing with me. I've always embraced the blues. I think it's great. And that was a wonderful track to start off with because it's bluesy, it's street, it's got tons of character, and it deals about substance abuse, and we all know about that.
Right. Now, I love that you also included on the album your version of "Live and Let Die." Right. So a lot of the rock fans from the '80s and '90s, they know Guns N' Roses recorded that. You see Guns N' Roses in concert, they still perform it. But I love that you guys did your take on it as well. So talk about that song.
Well, I remember hearing a story where Paul said his kids were going to see Guns N' Roses in England, and they went to the show, and when they got home, Paul said, "Hey, hi kids, how was the concert?" And they said, "Oh, Guns N' Roses was incredible." And they played this song, they played their song, "Live and Let Die," Live and Let Die. And Paul said, "Wait a second, I wrote that song." And they go, "Yeah, sure, Dad." They went to bed. So I mean, the kids didn't even give them the respect there. What a fabulous song, wonderful track right there. And I thought when we were recording that song, I go, God, I don't have the Axl Rose timbre. He's one of the greatest singers of our generation. Have nothing but respect for Guns N' Roses. I used to play with Adler. I lived with them for years.
Right.
I went on tour for 7 years playing Appetite for Destruction in its entirety every single night. And for me to go out there and try to compare myself to an iconic singer like that who can jump over and do a Guns N' Roses show and then after the tour join AC/DC, that's not in my vocabulary.
Right.
But I thought I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. And I'm telling you, that's one of my best vocals on the record. And that was 1 or 2 takes. Because I grew up listening to that tune. I heard the Guns N' Roses version of it as well. We don't sound like Guns N' Roses on it, but the guitars are absolutely heavy.
Agreed.
And you can hear it. There's a strong little punch to it all. The vocals, we didn't go crazy and double and triple track stuff on there. Yep. I think our version of it's pretty strong, and I respect the legacy of what Paul did.
Absolutely. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were born in '68, right? Which is pretty much the end of the Beatles era. When did you become a Beatles fan as a kid?
Right when I was born. My mom and dad turned me on to. My mom and dad would play all old records from across the pond when I was a little kid. Whether it was Beatles or Tom Jones. They loved Black Sabbath, believe it or not. And I'd listen to all the Woodstock records. Mott the Hoople. My dad was a huge Mott the Hoople fan. It's unbelievable what I learned from my parents. And back then, I didn't trip my trigger that much. It wasn't a big deal. And as I got older, I started realizing, man, this stuff it permeates in your system, and you can't get it out of them. And the older we get, the stronger our influences are. And unwittingly, mom and dad turned me on to all that English stuff and early Pink Floyd, Uma Guma, man. I'll never forget listening to those records and my dad going, "Yeah, this guy's a star, Sid Barrett." And I go, "Sid Barrett? I've never even heard of this cat." Right. And as growing up, and then the Beatles stuff, he was a T-Rex fan too. He loved anything T-Rex. And I thought, well, back then he was a little bit flamboyant, a little colorful for me. But as I got older, I realized that it was in my blood. Those bands across the pond, they all took chances. They had a great look. I admired their strut. And it's only fitting that here I am now playing records, making music, all these years, and following the footsteps of my heroes.
That's awesome. So if you had to choose, and I know this is almost impossible, Lennon or McCartney, which one would you choose?
It is almost impossible. I admired Lennon's attitude. He had full of piss and vinegar, and I loved Paul's sense of balance when it came to melodies and melodic songs. I think they were both fantastic. Uh, I got to be honest with you. Uh, Lennon was a pot smoking guy. He's out of control. McCartney, he was a womanizer. He loved his trim. It's an even tie right there. They're both brilliant beyond belief, and I thank them both for their contribution to music for not only my band but for all of us out there, because there's nobody like them, and there'll never be another Beatles ever again. But you know what? I think we paid respect and homage on this record, Hardrock Night. Anybody that doesn't know about the Beatles but likes real hard rock music, check out the new Enough's Enough album, because you'll be pleasantly surprised. These songs resonate to anyone out there, from all age groups, from the young kids to grandma and grandpa.
I agree 100%. So I'm curious if you've ever seen the movie Yesterday that came out a couple of years ago, where it imagines a world where maybe the Beatles didn't exist. Have you ever seen that before?
Yeah, fantastic. It really touched my soul. Incredible. With the black guy singing, right?
Yeah, right. So now let me ask you, what would you think the world would be like without the Beatles existing?
Well, I don't know. I got to be honest with you. Right now, we're in going through some unprecedented times. It's I couldn't even guess that. I know there'll be less bands out there, that's for sure, because
Sure.
when the Beatles came out, another 30,000 bands followed in their footsteps. Everybody wanted to be them and copy them. So it would be a different world, that's for sure. But that movie was really well written,
Yeah.
and those songs were the catalyst to that movie being successful.
Of course, absolutely. Now, your old partner from Enough's Enough, Donnie, right? Everybody always compared his voice to John Lennon. Did you ever consider having him sing a song in this? Because I know you guys have worked a little bit on and off for the past year.
No, not at all. He's not. He don't sing in Enough's Enough anymore. He's retired in 2013. He's got a solo career, and we wish him well on that. Nobody sings him like he does too. He could do that stuff like as good as those cats. I mean, he grew up as a little kid. He'd sing those Beatles songs, and that was one of the things that tripped my trigger in the early days when I put Enough Stuff together, was the timbre that he carried as a vocalist. Yep. But as we move on in life, and I'm right now, the car is designed with a front seat and a back seat, and I'm sitting in the front seat. I didn't want this gig, but I'm happy I have it now because the fans have spoken. Band sounds great. I'm happy for the contribution that I had in the 29 years that we worked and toured around the country. But the singer from Styx, Dennis DeYoung, ain't coming back into the fold. You're not going to see Foreigner getting back in there with Lou Graham.
So true.
Journey, Steve Perry's not coming back. Those bands sold significantly many more records than we have. Yep. I think that in the last 8 years of him not being in the front seat, I've navigated just fine. It's been a challenge, but the fans have spoken. We sell enough records every year where Frontiers and Cleopatra both want to continue their relationships with Enough's Enough. And I think we just move forward like that and be grateful for what we've been given. And that's it at the end of the day. And have nothing but love and support and good vibes. And by the way, I'm playing on his solo record. I'm playing bass on Party Time, and I'm also in the video as well. So I'm certainly not hanging carrying a cantankerous vibe toward anything of the past. That's for sure. I want to look at the glass half full, not half empty. Who cares who drives the bus? As far as I'm concerned, let's just get to the party, bro.
That sounds awesome. Now, to the point of you kind of taking the lead vocals, I saw you perform, I think it was 2016 or 17. I forget what year it was, on the Kiss Cruise. And to me, it really worked. You guys were great. You handled all the vocals, and it was just a absolutely fun show.
He's a better singer. I'm a better frontman. And Doc McGee and the guys in Kiss were all at that show. How intimidating is that? You're opening for Kiss, then you go and you look out in the crowd, and there's Paul and Gene and the gang, and Doc McGee, and you're going, oh man, we got to nail this. I remember Evan Stanley, Paul Stanley's kid, who's very talented.
Yes.
He came up and did Baby Loves You with us, playing guitar and singing. At the end of the show, and it was jam-packed, sold out, tons of trim there. People were really excited about seeing Enough Stuff in concert. And at the end of the show, Doc and Paul came up to me and they said, Chip, you should have been doing this 10 years ago. We've always fought an uphill battle. It's always been peaks and valleys for Enough's Enough. I gave it my shot. I gave it everything I had with it. There was not a chance when Donnie left that I was going to say, we're going to stop. And, I got a wonderful band with Tori Stoff Reagan, Daniel Benjamin Hill, Tony Fennell, a singer from Ultravox, who's just fabulous beyond belief. My band is strong, and they believe in the legacy of Enough's Enough. And there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to go out and play these shows. I co-wrote the songs. I produced all the records. I'm a part of the face of the band, and I'm grateful. And I got Donnie's endorsement by him saying himself, if you're going to continue with Enough's Enough, you should go out and sing the songs, because perhaps when people see your mug out there, they're going to know it's Enough's Enough. And there you go. I've done it all. And you got it. And you've seen the shows with Kiss on the Kiss Cruise. Right after that, we did Ace Frehley tour. The fans have spoken. If it wasn't kicking ass, we wouldn't be moving forward. That's it. In this day and age, I'm very grateful for the opportunities out there. And as long as there's gas in the fucking tank of this Oscar Mayer Wiener wagon, I'm going to take it around the world. And it's going to help us all. It'll help him as well, because he co-wrote a lot of those songs, or wrote a lot of those songs. And he'll get publishing, and maybe a movie, a soundtrack, a TV, a commercial. Sure. There'll be more opportunities. If I wasn't out there and didn't keep the ship afloat, nobody would be talking about us right now. We'd be just a small, little embryo of what we were in the old days now. So because of my tenacity and my hustle, we've been able to keep the name out there, keep moving, getting the catalog, shopping stuff, letting people know that we're still a viable band. I think it's all a win-win, and it's not selfish whatsoever. And more than anything, I'm sacrificing for the fans. I want them to hear these songs. I want to go out and play shows every night. That's my living. That's what's going to be my legacy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you just touched on Evan Stanley jumping on stage with you at the Kiss Cruise. So I've been on 9 of those cruises. His son has been on many of them. Very talented, like you said. I don't recall him jumping up on stage with any other band other than Enough's Enough. And I found that incredible, because he at the time is in his early 20s. You guys were maybe right around the time he was born, yet he was like, I got to get up on stage. I got to play Baby Loves You. That's one of my favorite songs. It must be cool when you see a 20-something-year-old into your music compared to like the old folks like myself.
It's great. I know, and I love Evan too. He's off stage. He's just a wonderful man. Paul did a great job. He comes from good stock. There's no doubt about that. He played more than one show with Enough Snuff, by the way, on the Kiss Cruise.
Oh,
he kept coming up and playing with he kept coming up on all the shows and wanting to play with us. So I thought that was great. I just had Sam Bam from Faster Pussycat. He's in his 20s too. He came up every single night with Enough Snuff on the last tour. That's awesome. Love when the kids come up there and play. That's the wave of the future. They're carrying the flag right now.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to share the stage. When I was a young guy and the guys from Cheap Trick would call me up to sing on an encore or something, I'll never forget about it. So it leaves an indelible mark. It's a wonderful feeling. And I want the new generation to grab onto it and carry that flag proudly.
Without a doubt. So now going back to the Beatles just for a moment, coming up later this month on Disney Plus is going to be the documentary Get Back. Are you interested in that? And are you going to be watching?
I'm definitely interested in anything Beatles. Let It Be just came out too as well. It's a big celebration. I just did the Beatles show on Sirius XM, and you don't get on those. Not many bands are on that show, okay?
Sure.
And to be and talked about in the same breath as the Beatles is an honor and a privilege as far as I'm concerned. So anything I could do for the Beatles, charity work, whatever it may be, count me in, bro. We're all my whole band, Enough Snuff. We hail what the Beatles stand for, and I'm grateful just to be swimming in the same ocean with those cats, even if it's at the shore.
Oh, that's awesome. So you've mentioned before that there's going to be a solo album for you. There's going to be, perhaps a new Enough's Enough album. It sounds like there's going to be tour dates. Do you have any tour dates that are already announced or ready to be announced?
I certainly do. Listen, I'm not just doing Enough's Enough and Beetle Records too. Yeah. I just produced the Midnight Devils, a punk band out of Nebraska. They're fabulous. Okay. Picture Sex Pistols and the Dam together. Oh, wow. It's a great, cool. A wonderful combination. Very melodic too. I just finished the Steve Ramone record, Joey Ramone's nephew. Yep. That's a great record right there. Real pop and alternative and rock all mixed together, and we did it over at Chicago Recording Company. I think that's a fabulous album. And I've done other stuff too that I haven't talked about because I've been so busy focusing on the band, Enough's Enough, and keeping us moving and having material ready to go for us in the future. So as far as touring goes, I still got more work to do, tweaking up these albums that I'm working on. But I believe in March or April of 2022, there's going to be like an 80s revival tour. I don't know what they're going to call it, but it'll be MTV bands. It'll be 80s stuff. It'll be new wave. It'll be rock. It'll be pop. I think it's going to be One in Rome, Bow Wow Wow, Missing Persons, and Enough's Enough. and that's going to be absolutely incredible, like it used to be in the old days when you go see Queen and it'd be Bill Nelson's Red Noise opening, or Angel with Piper and the Runaways, or Kiss and uh, Mahogany Rush,
Right.
where bands that really don't, you would think they wouldn't work together, but they do.
Right. Right.
And I think the future of music for all bands is consolidation. You're going to start seeing a lot of bands where it's 2, 3 bands, 4 bands together, and that makes it's a more bang for the buck for the fans, and it's interesting for the groups too.
Yeah, no, that sounds very exciting. We'll definitely be on the lookout for it. So at this point, like you said, the pre-sale is already pretty much sold out. But if I'm not mistaken, is there color vinyl that's available? There's a CD version. Are there any other versions of the record that'll be available?
Yeah, the vinyl and the CD is sold out right now. They're just the pre's, which is unbelievable. I mean, the last record we had, Diamond Boy, was the first album we had in 25 years that broke the Billboard Top 200. And now here we are putting a Beetle record out, and it's sold out before it even comes out. That's incredible. We will have, on the 12th of November, Frontiers Records and all the constituents around the country will be releasing the record on CD and also on white vinyl. So people will be able to get the record, but the pre-sales right now, I couldn't predict this. If I was a multimillionaire, I'd go out and buy all the records just for perception. I didn't have to do that. The fans have spoken. These Beatles songs are huge. The sum is bigger than the parts, bro. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Well, I usually like to ask artists in today's day and age, what do they measure success as? It used to be platinum albums, gold albums, right? Today, nobody sells records, but it sounds like this album's already on the road to be successful with the sellout or the pre-sale. But how would you label success for this project?
Well, I'll tell you, nowadays you put a Guns N' Roses or a Queen or the Who, any of those guys put records out and they sell 20, 30,000 units. That's like selling 300,000 units. Okay.
Yep.
So that's how the record companies look at it now. You sell 3,000 records. It's like selling 30,000 records in this day and age. And now you have with Spotify and with Deezer and iTunes and all the different, landing pages that happen with records. That's how people get albums right now. And it counts as album sales on that stuff. So what's my vision? My vision is to take the show and bring it on the road like they did in the old days. A band would make a record. You get in a tour bus or a van or whatever it would take you. For us, it wouldn't be a tour bus because it costs too damn much. We'll get in a van or something and we'll go out and we'll tour and play all the shows like that. That's the way you do it. They did it like that in the old days, and it stopped. Everybody started, watching MTV, and then you go out and you tour a little bit and you take time off and you start making another record. And I want to tour and I don't want to stop touring. So I think it's about taking it to the streets at the end of the day. So on this new Enough's Enough Hardrock Nite record, it's finished. Now we go out there, we do the interviews, and we tour around the country, and we take it all over the place, not just here, but all around the world.
That sounds awesome. One more question for you, if you don't mind. So I said before, my favorite song, I think my favorite song on the album was Jet. Do you have a favorite?
I like them all, to be honest with you. It's hard to pick a favorite. In concert, when we play, I love the Lennon stuff, obviously, and I love the McCartney stuff, the solo stuff. The first single's Jet. All the songs trip my trigger. Is not a stinker in the bunch. You can't go wrong when Lennon and McCartney wrote the songs. No pressure on me there, except to sing them live and try to make sure that it sounds close enough to the original version. I'm pretty happy with the whole thing right now. I couldn't pick a favorite on there, but I certainly like Helter Skelter. That's pretty heavy. And to me, that was the first heavy metal song ever released by any band. So I'm looking forward to playing that one live in concert. Quite a challenge too. McCartney's pipes are incredible right there. But like I said before, I got a great band who can sing, so I should be in pretty good shape.
Sounds great. So Hardrock Nite, November 12th, a week away. Anything else, Chip, that you'd like to tell your fans about the album or any of your plans before we wrap up?
Nope. Thanks everybody for listening and following us. I really appreciate it. It's been an illustrious run. I'm looking forward to taking the show on the road. I thank everybody out there that's been supporting the band. A quick shout out to our military, all our policemen, our doctors.
Absolutely.
All the people in the country that need their support. I think that I'm looking forward to next year where things open up in the United States and we'll see a plethora of touring going on all around the country. People are going to be freaked next year because you're going to find yourself in a position where it's going to be the Wild West there. Everyone's going to be touring out there.
Sure.
I hope to be lucky enough to be one of the bands out there following their footsteps.
Well, let's hope from your lips to God's ears that that's what it's like next year for everybody. I think everybody's craving live music again.
Yeah, that's what my grandpa used to say. Your lips to God's ears. Once again, thanks a lot. Hard Rock Nights Out Now. You can find me on enoughsenough.com, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And if you want to hear my pipes any more than you already heard them right now, go over to dashradio.com. Dashradio.com. Download the app. I'm on the Monsters of Rock, channel 502.
Awesome.
Great program I'm on. We celebrate hard rock and heavy metal 24/7, 365 days of the year. Rudy Sarzo's got his own program.
Yep.
Sammy Hager's on there as well as Claudia, and of course the great Carrie Stevens, the Playboy Playmate, Harlan Hendrickson. It's a wonderful program. I love being on there playing songs every single day, and it's A through Z, the whole alphabet of hard rock and heavy metal. Dashradio.com. Download the app. It's free. Monsters of Rock.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chip. Much success with the album, and look forward to seeing you on the road next year.
God bless you and your family. May you live to be 100 years old, my friend.
Likewise to you, my friend. Take it easy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank Chip for taking some time with me, talking all about the new Enuff's Enough album, Hardrock Nite. Trust me, if you're an Enuff's Enough fan or a Beatles fan, you're going to love this album, I promise you. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.